From Classrooms to Careers is presented by the Spring Branch ISD Alumni Foundation. This series is made possible through the generous support of First Community Credit Union.
Well, welcome to Six Schools, One Legacy, From Classrooms to Careers, where we highlight the stories of exceptional graduates of the six high schools of the Spring Branch Independent School District. Each conversation explores the path from student life to professional life, the lessons, the challenges, the moments that shape the journey. I'm Paul Marks, a 1976 graduate of Memorial High School in Spring Branch School District, and I'm your host. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Roger Clemens, who graduated from Spring Woods High School in 1980. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you having me on.
So we always start out with tell us a little bit about where you grew up and when you at what point you entered into the Spring Branch School District.
Yeah, so I was actually born in Dayton, Ohio. I had family there. From what I understand, I was almost a freeway baby. They said I came out pretty quick. Came out running, as they say. And my mother, my pops passed away when I was 9 years old. My
Oh,
mother raised six of us. I tell people I was raised by two strong-willed women that had great work ethics. And my oldest brother got stationed in the military. I believe it was Fort Hood. And my mom picked up the rest of us and we headed to Texas. And so it was great because she knew I loved playing baseball. I think she told the story one time. It was a Mother's Day special that we did when I was actually playing professionally with the Red Sox. And she told the story that I was 7 years old and I was really upset and just kept pestering my dad why I couldn't be nine. I wanted to be nine so I could play Little League Baseball. And Mom knew that I enjoyed sports and, loved the team concept and everything about it. So when we came to Houston, um, she had done her homework. Mom was a stickler on education. She was an accountant by day.
oh,
I helped her stock coolers in the afternoon, and we even cleaned buildings at night. So, Paul, I felt that we were rich. I had a sweet red glove and new pair of spikes just about every season. She made it sure I was ready to go equipment wise. And but she did her homework. At the time I came down when I was young, she had already heard about the Bel Air School District, and they were very competitive very in those years. And then she also heard about the Spring Woods High
mhm,
School and the Spring Woods Tigers, and they had a wonderful coach named Charlie Mariana. And so we ended up, she ended up buying a townhome close to Spring Woods, not too far from Spring Woods, and not too far from where my current home is now. I tell everybody when they ask about being in Houston and playing for the Astros, where did you live? And I said I lived at my home. I said we lived a couple of years in Katy, Texas, and then after I graduated out of high school and college, went on professionally. We're in Katy a couple years, but we're still about 4 miles from my high school. And mom put me enrolled me in Springwoods High School, and it kind of started there for me. I mean, like I touched a little bit earlier, I was very, very fortunate, Paul, to have a high school coach like Charlie Mariana, who was a great disciplinarian. I mean, he basically became a father figure to me. He wasn't just my coach. He was a father figure, and I tell people most of the coaches that I had, the good ones, they were great teachers of the game of baseball, but they were better teaching the game of life. He left me with
oh.
a lot of things that I could use in my life after high school there at Spring Woods.
So when you were in high school, was because there was a baseball season. So were you involved in other things while you were at Springwoods other than baseball during those off seasons?
I did. I mean, I graduated early at 17 again, and the reason I say that is because I happened to grow and my body matured, and I got drafted, I think, by the New York Mets, and my mother didn't want me to at that age to go professionally. I was pretty devastated too because I thought I might not get the chance to play professionally again, but she wanted me to further my education when I had the opportunity to go to the University of Texas. But in high school, yeah, it was great. I played all three sports. I was a defensive end in football, probably a better defensive end than I was pitcher, first baseman in baseball. And I
Uh,
played basketball to my junior year, and then I just concentrated on the two sports and got offers. And let's face it, the only way I was, because of our financial situation, the only way I was going to further my education was for have the opportunity to get a scholarship. And that didn't even enter my mind until my senior year at Springwoods High School. Um, some scouts started showing up and some college coaches started showing up, both football and baseball. And obviously, my mother was excited about that, that if I had a chance to go to college and they would pay for it, that was going to be the way we were going to go. And so, again, I had a very strong-willed mother and grandmother, great work ethics, and I had a high school coach there that thought the same. I wasn't the best pitcher. I was probably the third best pitcher on the team. We had two
wow.
older guys that were really good pitchers, and if they struggled, coach would bring me on. It's the same thing. I do some work with the Astros and different teams, in spring training, and I talk about being a power pitcher. I didn't really have the power back then. I was probably threw about 85 miles an hour, had a Bugs Bunny curveball, little curveball I'd flip in there when coach would bring me in. But I was a strike thrower. And no matter how big a game or how big of a pressure point in the game, I was a strike thrower. So I think coaches noticed that. And again, it all started with my high school coach too. There, he saw my work ethics. I didn't have a car. Everybody would drive home after practice. Thank goodness our town home was only about 2 miles from Spring Woods, so I would run home after practice. I put my backpack on and I would run the 2 miles back to the house after games or practices.
So, was when you were in high school, obviously, the offer from the Mets and so forth, were you was that your dream to play Major League Baseball? That was what your goal was?
Yeah, I think I even though I was very good in football, I just thought baseball, I really enjoyed that game the most and having the opportunity to pitch a little bit. I was an okay hitter. My senior year in high school, obviously you're always one of the top athletes and your hitting and pitching shines. And I got a bunch of offers my senior year, and a couple of them were pretty intimidating. Just leaving the Houston area, even if it was only 2 hours, say to Austin, it was kind of intimidating for me. So I was lucky that when I mentioned my coaches here, and I talk about leaders and great baseball men and teachers of the game of life, across town, Spring Branch, there was a coach named Wayne Graham, and Coach Graham ended up taking the head coaching job at San Jacinto the same year I graduated. And he called me, said, "Hey, I know you have an opportunity to play in some 4-year schools, but you probably sit the first couple of years. Why don't you come over here and start for me and play for me and start your education at San Jacinto?" And so it worked out perfect because it was about a 35-minute drive. I could come back home, get my laundry done for free, and and do everything like that. So it was great having Coach Graham there. And Coach Graham was a baseball lifer. For your viewers, he went on to take the head coaching job at Rice University,
Wow.
took them to a national championship, and again, just a great baseball man and great teacher of the game of life.
So you were at San Jacinto and ultimately ended up at the University of Texas. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. After my freshman year, I grew 2 inches to 6'4". My fastball jumped to about 94 miles an hour. And Coach Gus at the University of Texas, Coach Cliff Gustafson, was the winningest coach in college baseball at the time. And he came after me again and offered me a full ride scholarship to go to and play at the University of Texas. Got into business school there, so that made my mother happy. And um, 2 years, my sophomore year, unbelievable team. We lost to Miami at the College World Series. I was pretty devastated on that because I thought it was probably going to be our only chance. And don't you know, we come back the very next year, our pitching staff being more experienced. I had some great teammates there. They just released on the SEC network called, I think it's called The Summer of '83. And it's a documentary about our '83 national championship team, which I pitched the final game and beat Alabama. for the national title. I tell people I wear my college World Series ring more than I do my World Series rings, my Major League Baseball World Series rings. But um, yeah, the rest was history. The Boston Red Sox took me #1 in the draft, and I was like, "Whoa, Boston!" I almost didn't know where Boston was at because it seemed like the Astros and the Texas Rangers were at all of my starts. Really scouting me hard. So I thought they may draft me early, but the Red Sox grabbed me, and boy, did I find out about it. I learned it was really cool because my mother wrote me a couple poems about Fenway Park and the
Oh,
history at Fenway Park. Paul, I was fortunate in my 24 years in the majors. I got to play for two of the most historic teams in baseball. Obviously, the Red Sox, Fenway Park, and the Yankees. And I played in Old Yankee Stadium where the great ones were. You see Lou Gehrig giving his farewell speech, or the Babe there, and DiMaggio and Yogi, all the great ones. I tease people. We had ghosts running around in that stadium. We had so many come from behind wins. So just real fortunate that that's the way kind of my career path went.
I want to jump back to University of Texas because that year, 1983, you won the Golden Spikes Award, and that was for the top amateur baseball player in the United States. How did that feel?
Well, I believe I won a couple awards. That may have been one of them, but I had another. There was a teammate of mine, Calvin Schiraldi, and Calvin was the best pitcher or player, as far as I'm concerned, in the country. And he was, I think, between and again they featured this on this show. It was Calvin Schiraldi, Mike Capel, myself, and Kurt Killingsworth, who was really a two-way player. We called him Killer. He could actually hit and pitch, and we were on every magazine in the country. It was just a real special. And I'm not real sure that if you looked at any pitching staff at that time at the University of Texas, I believe we all had 12 plus wins, which was unheard of. So that was that, yeah, again, yeah, that was playing at the University of Texas. Everybody wanted to go there at that time. We had a state-of-the-art stadium. It was almost like a spaceship. It was a half shell where the
Hmm.
5,000 people could sit. First field that had AstroTurf. Let me back up. In high school, when we were going to the New Bronzeville, we drive to New Bronzeville for the tournament, or the state tournament for a high school player was played at Dish Falk Field. So
Hmm.
we had already seen that field, and it was just like, you come from Spring Woods and our chain link fence field,
Right.
and coach kept it immaculate. Coach Mariana in high school, we as players had to take care of that field and make it look special and brand new. But once we saw that field at the University of Texas, every kid wanted to go there. You just hope that they wanted you. And if you wanted to get noticed and you wanted to play high college baseball, there was no place in the country to play than the University of Texas.
Yeah, those were great years. So,
Big
so
time.
let's talk a little bit about when you got drafted. You were drafted in 1983, but you came up to the major leagues in 1984. Is that correct?
I did. I came through the minor leagues fairly quick. Once we won the College World Series and I was drafted, uh, it was funny and interesting. Playing in Omaha at the College World Series in front of 20,000 people, and it was just unbelievable. Even when the teams got eliminated, some of their fans would leave, but most of the people in Omaha would still attend the game. And like I said, 20,000 people. We
Mhm.
win the World Series 2 weeks later after I was drafted. The Red Sox sent me to Winter Haven, Florida, which I had no idea where that was at. And so I drove to Winter Haven, Florida, and there was basically tumbleweed blowing around the streets. And I got my first professional start in Winter Haven, and there was probably 11 fans in the stands. I mean, you
Oh,
could you could look over at the guy hollering at you and screaming your name. And um, so it was a little bit of a shock leaving the World Series to go play minor league baseball. But I was lucky. I worked my way through the minor leagues pretty quick. I think I had 12 starts in the minors, and then the Red Sox called me up to the major leagues. Got my first major league start in May of 1983, and I'm sorry, in 1984 was my first big league spring training, and I got my first major league start on May 15th, which happens to be my youngest son's birthday. Cody, who's with the
Mm,
Minnesota Twins, he's an infielder for the Minnesota Twins.
yeah.
On May 15th in Cleveland, and it was freezing. And again, it was they called their stadium the Mistake by the Lake, and that's definitely what it was.
Ah, so 1984, 1985 season, but 1986 was a big season for you. We had a little talk before we started recording, and today that we're recording this is the 40-year anniversary of your 20 strikeout game, which happened in the 1986 season. You went on in 1986 to with a 24-4 record, a 2.48 ERA, and you won the American League Most Valuable Player as well as the Cy Young Award.
There you go. Very good. Yeah. So you're bringing back some memories.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. 1986 was special. And like you said, I came out of the gate. I think I was 4-0 when I set them. I had no idea there was a major league record for strikeouts. During that game, I think when I got to 15 strikeouts, they flashed on the board at Fenway that it was a Red Sox record.
Oh
And
wow.
then my teammates alerted me that there is a major league record that 3 guys hold at 19. And so when I got to 19, I think I had 18, and I went up to change my jerseys in the locker room, and a few of the pitchers followed me up there, and they told me, they said, "Hey, I don't think you know what's going on, that you have a bunch of strikeouts, but you're approaching a major league record." So I was fortunate to go back out in the ninth and strike out 2 guys, I believe,
Mhm.
and reach 20 strikeouts. My pitching coach, Bill Fisher, is a stickler on walking guys. He did not like us walking guys, so he loved it that I set the major league record for strikeouts. But after the game, he told me he was more proud because I didn't walk a single batter in that game. And I spoke at Fish's funeral not too long ago in Council
Oh,
Bluffs, and um, he still, to the reason I bring it up is that to this day, when I tell you that he didn't like, well, us pitchers, his pitchers, walking guys, to this day, he still holds, Paul, he still holds the record for not allowing a walk in 91 consecutive innings.
oh
And
wow.
there's been guys trying to approach that to try and break that record, and they haven't been able to do so yet. So I actually repeated the feat 10 years later in Detroit, tied my own record with 20 strikeouts 10 years later in 1996, and the phone rang in the clubhouse after the game. It was my former pitching coach that time, the same one that I had on the first one. Obviously, he was no longer my pitching coach at that time, but he called the clubhouse. I answered the phone, and I told him, I said, "I know why you're calling me." He goes, "Because I struck out 20 again." But I said, "You're calling me because I didn't walk anybody in this game again. And that's why you're calling." He goes, "That's exactly why I'm calling you, to tell you congratulations." So, um, yeah, it was that 86 season was big time. Special year. I was in played 24 years in 6 World Series. That 1986 World Series was super emotional. And I tell people, when you think about the 86 playoff season, you have to go back a week before the World Series when we were playing the California Angels, and an up and down emotional series. The California Angels at one point had us 1 strike away from eliminating us out of the playoffs.
Wow.
And Dave Henderson, my teammate, hit a big home run to tie the game. We went on to win that series. Then we get in the series against the Mets, and it was just we were 1 out away from winning, the 1 strike away from winning the World Series there. So super emotional. Again, I've always said that I think go back to originally what you asked me about, how much you love playing baseball. It teaches you, I mean, life lessons. I mean,
Right.
I'm able, when I do my talks to business corporations or to high school kids or whatever it is, you can really bring the game of baseball into play with a bunch of those talks.
Yeah, and I mean, 1986 was a sad year for the Houston Astros. I remember that,
Oh yeah,
they
you're
got
right. You're
eliminated by
right.
the Mets. It was
And
not,
and I was disappointed because I would have got to come home.
oh, yeah, that's true.
I'd have got to sleep in my own bed during the World Series for a few games
Yeah, that would have been
If the Astros would have won that. Mike Scott had a fantastic year, and Scotty and I actually had a golf tournament here in Houston for a number of years.
Okay. Well, and that year when you won the Cy Young Award, that was the first of 7 Cy Young Awards that you won, which is a major league record. I don't know that anybody will ever get to that level, but you also played. I don't think a lot of people remember this, but you also played for Toronto for a period.
I did. So after my 13 years in Boston, um, uh, was a free agent, and there was about 4 teams that were hit me up for my services for that, and I hit it off. What I tell people that when I was with the Red Sox, the Yankees, it's still one of the biggest rivals in all of
Sure.
sports, Yankees, Red Sox. But the Yankees weren't very good during the late '80s, early '90s. They had a few good players, but they weren't very competitive. When I was with Boston, the Toronto Blue Jays were very were we competed against them very hard. Um, and I think they won back to back in 1991 and 1992. They won back to back world championships. Paul Beeston, the owner, came to Houston and said, I'd like for you, to come to Toronto and play, and we're going to build this team back to those winning years. So end up signing with Toronto, a 4-year deal. But after 2 years, Mr. Beeston went to the league office, I believe, to do some work. That kind of freed me up, and Mr. Steinbrenner came calling again. Uh, I really enjoyed it. I had a more mellow Mr. Steinbrenner than in the 70s, probably,
Yeah.
but he came here to Houston twice and finally said, "Hey, you want to be? I've been trying to get you for 3 years. You want to be a damn Yankee, or don't you?" And I said, "Well, let's do this." And so I went to New York after Toronto, and a wonderful 7 years there. We did nothing but win, and that's kind of the when you play baseball in the East, playing for the Red Sox or Yankees, your goal is to get to the World Series and win it, or it's really a off year for you. So we had again, we were stacked with all-star players, guys that knew how to perform when the lights were the brightest, and a couple. We got named Team of the Century, a couple World Series championships back to back, but we were in the series 4 or 5 times, and right in the middle of the playoffs during those times. So it was a lot of fun for not only us as players but the fans.
And as far as your career goes, 354 wins, 4,672 strikeouts, which is third overall behind Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson, two great pitchers who all pitched in Houston at some point, and over 5,000 innings pitched. And you were kind of in the game when pitchers would go 9 innings or would go
Yeah,
long in the
good
game.
question. Yeah,
That's all changed now.
yeah, good. It has changed now. It's like I said, analytics. I'm in the middle of the road on the analytics. I'm not too high or too low on it. Some guys, some older players, they pretty much they were coaching and they left the game because they didn't want to deal with it. I call our guys propeller heads. They punch stuff in a computer. I still believe that certain guys you need to go out if you think they're struggling or they're in a little tight jam. I still think you need to go out to the mound and do an eye and a heart test and really look at them in the eye and see if they can do it. But yeah, a lot of guys after 4 innings, they're using a lot of their pitches for over 4 innings, Paul. Um, they're chasing velocity now instead of, again, I'm a power pitcher. I don't like guys that throw. I try and, really, so if you don't have, I threw over 100 miles an hour, but I never pitched at that speed. I pitched more in the 94 to 97 range. When you start throwing balls over 100 miles an hour, you're going to make mistakes in the middle of the plate sometimes. It's great to have the velocity, but it's the last of the 3 things you need. You need location, you need movement, and velocity is great. I tell people and tease them, but it holds true that pitching is like buying property or a house. Location, location, location. So um, we try and stress that with the guys. We stress really good mechanics to try and keep them away from, as you've seen, a lot of these pitchers obviously are getting Tommy John surgeries. So
Yeah.
I really try and tell the high school kids when I have a chance to talk to them, or some of the young college kids. A lot of my oldest son teaches, and he does lessons and stuff, and he'll have kids come here, and I'll try and talk some sense into their parents. Again, I played, instead of playing one sport, I played three, like I told you earlier at Springwoods. And so I set the glove down, and I knew that come January 15th, when I picked that glove back up and smelt that smell of that leather glove, it was time to go. So um, we just really want to try and keep these kids away from injuries as much as we can.
Yeah, because there's a lot of kids in high school that end up with Tommy John surgery,
A
right?
lot, a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So, in closing, I mean, we could talk about your career, for a long time because there's a lot to it. But let's talk a little bit about if a high school student is watching this interview. What type of advice could you give them? Because obviously you had the dream of going to be a professional baseball player and had a lot of interest while you were, going to that senior year. From you said you got the offer from the Mets. So, what would you tell a high school student to think about how to plan, even if they're not going into sports, if they're going into business or whatever?
Absolutely. Well, like I said, you can intertwine both of them, as far as work habits that you have. Um, Once you have, you may not you may, again, it may take you to your freshman or sophomore year, even in college, to decide what path you really want to take. Um, the decisions you make in high school, I mean, I thank goodness, again, like I said, I had, even though I just was single parent with my mom, she really, made sure I stayed away from doing some bad things, and to walk away from those things, not get caught up in it. Um, I would always tell the high school guys, pick your spots where you want to have your fun, fun where it's, not dangerous, but have your fun, but also understand the time is when to get in the classroom and get after it. You'll be tremendously happy with yourself, if you have great work habits. I mean, I was supposed to, jumping around a little bit, but I was supposed to pitch. I was a New York Yankee, Paul, and I was supposed to pitch the night of 9/11. And so I
Oh,
was in the city when all that happened. And so I was fortunate. General Myers, a four-star general at the time, asked me to go to the Middle East, and he went to high school with my agent. So that's how it came about. But I went to the Middle East for about 8 days, saw about 15,000 of our men and women, and I can't tell you how many upper level uh, 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 officers in the military said, even get up in the morning and make your bed. It's a
oh,
win. You've won the day right there. You've already started the day off with a win. And I think mentally, the only thing I get upset with people that when I do interviews or something like that, they think that us $1 million ball players, silver spoon in our mouth, and they never did the background. I said, no, 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 no. I lost my pops at 9. My mom worked her tail off. I can still see her when I was at Springwoods, at her townhome with her hands buried in her head, and our electricity's getting turned off, not once but
oh,
twice. And so, you you I know where I came from. I know the work ethic. You guys see, people see me behind the glove and my stare and my the way I went about my work. I tell people that's what I did for 24 years, not who I am as a person. We've got our Roger Clemens Foundation that we just celebrated, I think, our 35th year, that deal with at-risk children also. So get a great game plan if you're in high school. Love what you're doing. Be on time. It didn't take any, you don't have to have any special talent just to be on time. And, some of the teachers, again, they've got stuff going on, but once you come through that door, once you come through that fence on the baseball field, that's my family. I owe it to them for those 3 hours to be locked into what I'm doing. When you walk into that 8 a.m. classroom, be on time, and be presentable, be alert, give the respect to your teacher. Hopefully the teachers are getting their job done and understanding that, you know, and somebody like me, like I said, I had wonderful teachers come up to me after I went professionally, and I came home to play in Houston, and everybody got that didn't have the means to come to New York or Boston to watch me work. They were able to come down to Minute Maid at the time and watch me do my stuff there. So it was really cool to see some of my teachers and remember them, and they remember me being in the classroom. And like I said, we're 6 miles from our high school right now, so I get to go up there and see a bunch of stuff, and I just got to donate some of my cool stuff for the museum that,
yeah.
Debbie and I are gonna go over. Deb and I went to high school together. We didn't date at the time, we got back together a few years later after high school. So it's been a nice little journey, and I'm looking forward to going over and taking a tour of the museum. So that's something we're looking forward to.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Roger, for reminding us how powerful this journey could be from classrooms to career. And also, I want to thank our audience for spending time with us. We encourage you to continue watching as we share more stories from remarkable graduates of the Spring Branch School District, because every legacy begins somewhere. Thanks.
This has been From Classrooms to Careers, presented by the Spring Branch ISD Alumni Foundation, made possible by the generous support of First Community Credit Union.